So this morning on this edition of Training Tuesday, we're going to talk about the importance of communications in the procurement file in BidBuy as a requirement. We're going to talk about canceling line items, BidBuy and SAP actions, and just a reminder for our monthly BidBuy training, which will be next Wednesday, our full day BidBuy training, and then our fun fact of the day. So first off, let's talk about procurement file contents. So anytime that we can, we want to provide not only, here at Training Tuesday, not only the reason, just that you're supposed to do this. We want to talk about, well, the reasons why, and point you directly to procurement code at any time possible. So that you can impress your friends and coworkers with your knowledge of the procurement code, and you can say things like, oh, well, Steve, Section 20-155 of the Procurement Code says, Section C, a procurement file shall be maintained for all contracts, regardless of the method of procurement. The procurement file shall contain the basis on which the award is made, all submitted bids and proposals, all evaluation materials, score sheets, and all other documentation related to or prepared in conjunction with the evaluation, negotiation, and the award process. And that talks about procurement file shall contain the written determination signed by the SPO or CPO, will not include trade secrets, but the procurement file shall be open to public inspection within 7 calendar days following award of the contract. So let's just kind of unpack that a little bit. When it talks about, so communications falls under all other documentation related to or prepared in conjunction with the award process. So, those emails that will need to be in the procurement file are those, maybe even coming from the end user, the the timeline when you're talking about developing specifications, all of that stuff that is related to the procurement and needs to be in the procurement file, which is in BidBuy, as well as needs to be open to public inspection within the 7 days. And so for some procurements, there may not be very much, but for some of your larger procurements, there could be quite a bit of communications, and we would assume that there would be. And so those emails need to be in the procurement file, which is in BidBuy. So here's another piece that you can impress your friends with, your knowledge of the procurement code. Section 20-155B, the procuring agency shall make available for public inspection and copying all pre-award, post-award, administration, and closeout documents relating to that particular contract. So that way, those communications, when we talk about, for instance, communications material to the development, timelines, award of the procurement should be included. So even those emails from your end users as well. And so now I would say you can disregard, those notification emails you get from BidBuy, because that's, you don't need to include those, because I would say that that's not material to the development. But, if you're going back and forth about, where the specifications came from, that is material to the development of a procurement. If you are making corrections on certain documents, I think those need to all be in there. And I guess where I'm getting at is, it's easier to put them all as you are developing them. And so we have, for example, here's the example from the job aid. If you see on the job aids, you see, let me go back. Sorry about that. On our job aids, when we have the documents and if they need to be showed to vendor, we have them listed. And at each stage, you will see that it says any communications for the procurement file. And so we have, as suggestions or a tip, create a subfolder in Outlook for each procurement and just add emails as you go. And so that way you can come back later and attach those communications. Another option is attach communications at each stage. So that's why we would say, at the requisition, maybe you're going to have more of those emails that are with or from your end user, talking about development and the specifications, et cetera, and then attach them at the rec, at the bid tab, and then of course at the PO. That's a suggestion and a tip to add those as you go, or you could be collecting them in a subfolder in Outlook and then attach them all as one zip file at the very end too. There's no specific requirement on either side of that. So whatever is going to work out workflow and best for you. But just as always, a reminder, BidBuy is the procurement file. So, if you ever have that question of, well, yeah, we were supposed to have communications in the procurement file. Does this need to go into BidBuy? Just as a reminder to everyone, BidBuy is the procurement file. So if there is any sort of FOIA request, they're going to uh, BidBuy as the procurement file. Okay. And if you have any specific questions about if a communication is required, reach out to your APO, your SPO, and we could do more of a deeper dive about that. But if it's material to development or award, that is going to need to be a part of the procurement file. Okay. Okay, not seeing any questions. I'll go ahead and move on. So next step is going to be canceling line item, BidBuy, and SAP action. So I actually have a separate document. I was having some issues this morning in trying to copy and paste, so I'm going to retype it. And so it will be a part of the slides. I just didn't have a chance to do that. So let's go ahead and open up this document I received. So let's kind of unpack what we need to do to cancel line item and how it interfaces with SAP. Okay, so in BidBuy, you cancel a line item in BidBuy by selecting the cancel checkbox located to the right of the total cost and click save and continue. You can see that there's a little picture there of what that looks like if you're canceling a line item. You'll get prompted with a box that states, are you sure you want to continue? Once you select yes, there's no way to undo this, what you just did on that PO. You would have to manually add the item back or clone the PO if the item was canceled by mistake. At that point, you can now submit the purchase order or the change order with no interference with the SAP interface. So you wouldn't receive one of those SAP errors. Now, um, full disclosure, I don't have access to SAP, and so I'm a bit of just an intermediary here when it comes to the SAP information. So for those of you that are in SAP all the time, I'm sure this next piece will make a lot of sense to you. So in SAP, if a line item gets canceled, so if a line item has been canceled in BidBuy, but there are no shopping carts or PO invoices against it in SAP, the item target quantity and value will be reduced to 0. Now, if there are shopping carts, PO invoices against it, and the line item is canceled in BidBuy, then it will reduce the target quantity and value to that total quantity and value of the shopping carts against it at that time. If a shopping cart PO invoice was not created against the line item prior to canceling the line item in BidBuy, but the end user has spend available, the SRM contract owner will need to edit the SRM contract to manually increase the item target quantity and value to cover the invoice that the end user wanted to add. Like I said, I unfortunately I can't speak to any of the SAP specific questions, so I would have to refer you to SAP. So like I said, unfortunately I'm not going to be able to answer any questions about this, but I did want to pass that on, and this will be a part of the slides, and so you can go back and take a look at that. So we do have a question. When would we cancel a line item? I thought the direction has always been to zero out a line item, but never to cancel it. Correct. So this is new in that now you can cancel a line item. We're not canceling the procurement because let me take you back. So if we cancel a bid or we cancel anything, you cancel a PO or actually, let's just talk about the bid. If you cancel a bid, any quotes that were received are lost. So that was, going back to the direction has always been to never cancel it. That was the issue. So I think in terms of canceling a line item could be a different situation there. But we're still not canceling a bid. You would cancel a bid by doing a bid amendment, but what the question is referring to actually selecting the cancel bid button that's at the bottom there. We still are not doing that because even if a bid is, quote, canceled and you do the bid amendment, that procurement file still needs to stay intact. So perhaps quotes were received, but they're never awarded. We still need to keep that procurement file. And if you cancel bid, anything that was received would be lost forever. So that's the reason why we don't cancel a bid. But canceling a line item could be something, a different situation. Okay. So I hope for those of you that makes sense to, the SAP folks, I'm sure it does make sense to you. And for those of you that don't work with the SAP interface, maybe this just doesn't refer to you. Okay, so let me go back to our slideshow here real quick. For our Monday, or for our monthly BidBuy training, we will be doing the very similar training that we've done the last several months. It will be virtually, of course. It'll be next Wednesday, August 19th, starting at 9 a.m. We'll have different sessions, so if you can make it the whole day, fantastic. If you can make it just one of the sessions that you would like to jump in and out of, feel free. It is only one WebEx for the entire day, so you won't have separate session. You won't have separate WebEx links, I should say. At 9 a.m., we're going to do an introduction, a little bit of background history of what BidBuy is, overview of what the system does, and general navigation within the homepage. At 10 a.m., we do small purchases under $10,000. At 11 a.m., we'll do a small purchase $10,000 and over, with an eye on doing a small purchase $10,000 and over. You have the very similar steps that you would do if you were doing an IFB or an RFP. You're going to have different procurement requirements, of course, but from a bid buy system standpoint, anything over $10,000 is going to go requisition to bid tab to PO. So we kind of discuss that rather than having a separate session for IFB, for instance, which would be very similar to some of the small purchase $10,000 and over process. Of course, there's going to be some of those differences, but rather than having a whole separate session for an IFB, we are doing the small purchase $10,000 and over, mostly because that is most of what our agency need is. There's a lot of percentage for those two types of procurements. We take a break for lunch. Then at 1 p.m. we do release off of master contracts. Here is the link. I will send out an email to the SPOs and APOs as a reminder later this week as well for next week. And next Tuesday, I'll probably remind you again. Okay, our fun fact of the day. August 11th, 1929, Babe Ruth becomes the first baseball player to hit 500 homers. He would go on to hit 714 eventually. And then surpassed by Hank Aaron, and he would end up hitting 755. And then, we can get in arguments about whether Barry Bonds actually really is the home run king, but we'll save that for another day. So do we have any other questions? Okay, not seeing that. I'll send these out as per usual. The recording will be available later today. And just remember those communications are important to have a part of your procurement file, as well as being able to be publicly inspected within 7 days. Thanks, everybody. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you next week.